All right. How is everybody tonight? Are you good? Hey, Aaron. Hey, Lauren. I love seeing faces. I understand. I know it's evenings are busy. So if you have to have your camera off, I totally get it. If you want to say hi and show your face, it might help me. So I don't bore you or anything. Um, yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, my 7-year-old cooperated tonight, so she's fast asleep. My 3-year-old, not so much. So you might get to meet Sutton at some point. We'll see. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I hit record on here. That way we have a recording available, which you guys will be emailed out as well. So if you want to go back and take notes, that's totally cool. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we've got a lot of stuff to cover, and we want to make sure that we open it up for any questions that you guys might have as well at the end. So if you have questions throughout this, feel free to just type them in the chat. If we feel like we're going to be touching on it anyway in the presentation, then we will. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end and cover it then. So all right, let's get started. I actually have a slide deck for you so that I can stay on track mostly, because if not, I will talk for hours and you guys will be like, all right, what's happening here? So let me hit share. Okay, perfect. All right, cool. So tonight we're going to be talking all about hormone health. So most likely you were invited here by a Sync certified coach or myself. You're here because this resonates with you, right? You want to hear more about hormone health. We're heading into a new year. It is January. So this is sort of the time of year that we find women, especially looking to establish health goals, looking to maybe get back to the exercise or really dial in the nutrition and all those types of things. And maybe you, though, have kind of been on that wagon, or you're debating, what's the best thing for me to be doing right now, but you also feel like a little inclined to learn more about your hormone health. This phrase is going to come up often tonight, and which is why I labeled the presentation "Normal is not optimal," because this is what I find most women are up against. Most women are up against feeling a little defeated, feeling like maybe their check engine light is flashing, that they really just aren't living with what I call maximum energy. They feel fatigued, they feel like they're not sleeping great, or maybe there's brain fog involved, or they can't lose the weight. And so what happens is we go to our doctors, we go to our OBGYNs, we go to our primary care doctors, and we say, something just feels off, right? Like I'm not able to lose the weight like I once was, or I'm just not feeling myself. Insert problem, right? Libido, etc. The list could go on. And oftentimes, unfortunately, what happens is that particular doctor will maybe send you down the hall for some lab work. You have the lab work done, and there's no attention paid to where you are in your menstrual cycle when that testing is done. There's no attention paid to the type of testing, whether it's blood, saliva, urine. Instead, it's just, let's check your labs and make sure everything's good to go. And so this happens, right? The woman goes down the hall, she gets her labs drawn, and she gets the phone call back from the doctor's office that says, good news, everything is normal. I actually just shared a funny reel from Instagram to my stories today, which really nails it. It's actually a really funny video of a woman who's pretending to be a doctor, and she's leaning over the grave of someone and says, like, just wanted to let you know your labs came back normal. And so, but I think we've all experienced that, where we just feel like, well, I don't feel normal, right? Like I don't feel like my body is really the way I used to feel when I was in my 20s or 30s or whatever the case. And so what do we do then, right? Well, I'm going to share with you a little bit of my story, and I'm going to share with you why I believe normal is not optimal. And really what it comes down to is understanding, if this is the only thing you take away tonight, I hope this is what you take away. Understanding that there is another way and that there is another option, and it is seeing your health through a functional lens. We're going to be talking about that tonight, otherwise known as a root cause approach to your health. Modern medicine, I have no shame. There's no shame in modern medicine. Actually, I always like to say modern medicine saved my dad's life. He was diagnosed with leukemia when I was 12 years old. He was given 2 weeks to live, and he lives in my neighborhood right across the lake from me right now, because of modern medicine. So I have nothing bad to say about modern medicine. I think it has a place in this world, but I actually believe in a more integrative approach. I believe there are things to understand and know from Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine and naturopathic medicine. I think there's a lot that we can learn And one thing that has proven true for me, which, as I said, I'll share my story, is that really there's two ways of looking at your health, right? We're going to talk about that tonight. So one way is through the traditional medicine lens that we've kind of all experienced, right? Your labs are normal, or here's a pharmaceutical to try for your symptoms, or maybe you should just work out harder and eat less. That's my personal favorite that makes me get on a soapbox. But there's also another way, which is a functional root cause approach. And I find that people are hearing about this more and more, but they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. How do I get started in that? How do I know what to ask? What testing do I really need? Or, what doctor do I go to? Like, it's kind of a lost world. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. So I want to share with you my personal story with this, because oftentimes I've been asked on podcasts or wherever the case is, I get asked, well, how did you end up in hormone health? And I always tell people, I ended up in hormone health very unfortunately through my own struggle and my own journey. So in my early 20s, I started, I'd always had migraine headaches, but I started having chronic daily migraine at the age of 22. Right after actually my husband and I got married, I started having it. What that means is I never had a break from migraine. It was 24/7, wake up in the middle of the night, there's a migraine, it was constant. And so we didn't know what to do, right? So we started seeking out specialists and experts. And I'll save you the full story and just let you know that over the course of 5.5 years, from age 22 to 27, I saw 14 different specialists. That included spinal doctors, neurologists, headache specialists, headache clinics. I had 4 total neck surgeries. I did Botox for migraine. You name it, I tried it. Acupuncture, yoga, meditation, all the things, all the angles. And I finally got to a breaking point at the age of 27 because my husband and I wanted to have a family, and everything was sort of trending in the wrong direction, right? I don't know about you, but like a date night to the urgent care isn't exactly what I had in mind for my 20s. And so things really started to hit hard. It affected my marriage. It affected my outlook on life and my family. And so I really just decided I had to take my health into my own hands, right? I felt like I was constantly going to different doctors and specialists, expecting to find what I call my doctor house. And I wanted somebody to say, that's it. You've got mold in your gutter. That's the problem, right? We just got to get that mold taken out and you're good to go. I was looking for that doctor, and it turned out I didn't find it, right? I just got handed pharmaceuticals and drug trials and all the things. And so I was on a walk with my good friend, Jen. This was a long time, feels like forever ago. We were on a walk, hiking through the woods. And I was at that point in my life was carrying painkillers, migraine painkillers in my pocket, loosely in my pocket. And I just pulled one out and took it. And I said, Jen, I've just accepted that this is what I'm going to have to do. Like, if I'm going to have friends and if I'm going to be living my life, I've got to just take this pill every day. I've got to just push through it. And she said something to me that would be very pivotal for me in my overall story. She said, Jenny, you can't give up because you are your own best doctor. You know your body better than any doctor can know your body. And again, another takeaway for you tonight, and something I want you to understand, is that if you feel off, if you feel like that check engine light's flashing, if you feel stuck, trust that intuition. We as women have a very strong intuition, but society has sort of taught us to kind of dim that intuition. Like, we must just be crazy, or this must just be perimenopause, or I must just need to eat less and work out harder, right? We start to take it on ourselves. So I heard those words from her, and I ended up taking her suggestion. I went to see a functional medicine doctor, and the functional medicine doctor really was game-changing for me. She did a bunch of lab work through saliva, urine, and blood that no one had ever done on me before through 5.5 years of migraine struggle. She took me off of the pharmaceuticals that I had been put on that had also created kidney stones and all kinds of issues, and said, here, we're going to take you off of this. We're going to start you on some natural supplementation. So we started to look at my unique deficiencies, my unique situation with my hormones, and we started to cater my plan toward that, which leads me to my next point, which is that health is individual. Sometimes people, even now, they'll be like, oh, you struggle with migraines? Like, what do you take? What do you do? What supplement do you take? Vitamin B? How much vitamin B do you take? Right? What works for me, I guarantee will not work for you, because we are all individual, and that goes for how we exercise, that goes for how we eat, that goes for our supplementation. We are all just very, very unique. So started seeing this functional practitioner, And I'll save you the long story here, but long story short, I got results through natural help. I got results through bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, through supplementing my body in the unique ways that it needs, and through really approaching lifestyle. Through this, around the same time, I started getting involved with health coaching. I started getting involved with exercise and nutrition. I started to embrace this approach to my health in a different way. And I really got hooked. Like, if you know me at all, you know that if I like something, I want to nerd out and I want to learn more about it. So I really started to just go down the pigeonhole of fitness and nutrition. I got my certified personal training license. I
Go
became a
to your bed and
nutritionist.
read a book,
My husband
please,
and I
and
owned a
ask your
gym
dad
for
to
about
help you
6.5
figure it out.
years,
Okay?
where I trained both male and female
I'm in a meeting
clients.
right
And something stood out at me very sharply when I owned that gym. I noticed that men were getting different results than the women. We would enroll people at the gym for 90 days of full body transformation. We would set them up with meal plans. We would set them up with protein shakes. We would set them up with workouts 6 days a week and accountability. And a lot of times the men would say, I just eat whatever my wife cooks. No, thank you. I'll come for the workouts. And the women would say, oh my gosh, how many carbs, and they would like literally nail it down to a T. And after 90 days, the men would have exceptional transformations, and oftentimes the women would struggle. So I knew through my own personal journey of migraines and functional approach, and knowing that I had also dropped 30 pounds once my headaches were resolved and I was supplementing my body in the unique ways that it needed, that hormones were something that wasn't part of fitness. It wasn't part of what we know as fitness. So a friend of mine, actually my life coach, introduced me to Dr. Stacey Sims. Dr. Stacey Sims is out of Australia. She's one of the pioneers in this space of cycle syncing and understanding female hormones. She actually is a lead consultant for the USA women's soccer team and a lot of other prestigious companies and brands, including Nike. And she's really kind of, like I said, a pioneer in this realm of putting females at the center of research. So I started following her. I took her courses on menopause and cycle syncing. And then I ultimately got my integrative health practitioner license just last year so that I could turn around and share this message. Because trust me, once you learn this, once you learn how women should be eating and training and supplementing, which is different than what society tells us, which is what we've always known works for men, once you know it, you can't unlearn it. And so for me, it was, how can I take this information that I've learned through my own story, that I've learned through these different courses and things that I've taken, and how can I turn around and translate that for other people to understand and to apply to their lives? So from there, my courses were born, my podcast was born, and that's my story. So tonight we're going to talk about this concept, right, of a root cause approach to your health. We're going to talk about maybe some reframing. A lot of people like to call this unlearning the ways that we've been taught before. It's important to know that decades upon decades of research that have been done on fitness and even on diet regimens and even in healthcare have been done on men. Researchers, when are asked, why don't you study women, say often, because women's hormones make things too complex. So when we look at the data and we look at the actual research that's being done on things like the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting and muscle confusion training and all these different things in the fitness and nutrition realm, we know that those things work for men. We don't know, because there hasn't been research done until the last 10 years, what actually works for a woman. So now that we're starting to get into that territory, thanks to people like Dr. Stacey Sims, we're starting to see that what works for women is actually often not what works for men, right? Oftentimes it's paying attention to hormones as root cause and understanding what that looks like for each unique woman. So tonight we're going to talk about everything in energy. I always like to set the bar there. I always like to start off with that, because we as women can get really hung up in the number on the scale. We can get really hung up in how our clothes fit and our flab under our arms and all the things. I'm not interested in any of that, because at the end of the day, I know that really our relationships and how we show up in the world is what matters the most, right? At the end of our time, our presence and our energy is what matters most. So we're going to measure everything in energy. So if I was to ask you the question, like, how do you feel about your body? I'm going to get a different answer than when I ask the question, how do you feel about your energy? right? So I want you to kind of assess for yourself tonight, like, how is my energy? Am I waking up in the morning with enthusiasm? I've got a good night's sleep. I feel ready to tackle the day and embrace the day. I'm happy in my relationships. I'm showing up and present for my children. I'm keeping up with my kids. I'm going to bed with a smile on my face full of gratitude, right? That's what our goal is. We're trying to show up in our life in that high energy state. And if you're not, this is where we're going to go a little bit deeper. So we know that 72% of women will deal with a hormone imbalance, if not before perimenopause, then during perimenopause. And let me just be clear, because a lot of people don't understand what menopause versus perimenopause means. Menopause is a birthday. It's 12 months from your last period. So the average age of menopause right now is 51. So most women around the age of 51, I would say 45 to 55, when their periods have ceased for 12 months, that particular day, 12 months from the last period, is considered menopause. From that moment on, you are a menopausal woman. But there's something that's not talked about a lot, which is perimenopause. And perimenopause can start as early as age 35, all the way up until menopause occurs. And what it looks like, without going into a full dissertation on this, because I know I could take up your whole night, what it looks like is this slow decline in hormones, right? And so estrogen for the first part of this decade will typically stay pretty steady until the near end when it drops off. But progesterone, which is your opposing hormone, right? It kind of works with estrogen in this beautiful symphony over the course of our cycles, over the course of our life. Progesterone starts to decline. And this gap that's created between the two, that, my friends, is the cause of, why am I not sleeping so well anymore? Why do I have brain fog? Why do I feel anxious? Why do I want to jump down my husband's throat most of the time? Why am I not getting results in my exercise anymore, right? This decline, this progesterone decline, especially in perimenopause, causes a lot of trouble. We're going to talk more specifically about that, but 72% of women will deal with hormone imbalance, if not before perimenopause, then during perimenopause, which is why we hear a lot of women say, everything I used to do is no longer working. Okay, maybe that's why you're here. So we're going to start this off as far as the science goes with really just explaining to you guys what I like to call the four-legged hormone chair. I go into a lot more detail about this particular topic on the podcast. So if you scroll all the way back to, like, I don't know, it's like one of the first 5 episodes I ever did 200 episodes ago, you'll see an episode on the four-legged hormone chair. I also reference it often. So the four-legged hormone chair, if you're picturing a chair just like this one, right, your kitchen chair, those 4 legs represent the 4 legs of your endocrine system. That means your sex hormones is one leg of the chair. Your sex hormones are things like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, FSH, and LH. Another leg of your chair is your thyroid, right? I like to say your thyroid is your thermostat. Another leg of the chair is your blood sugar. And the 4th leg of your chair is your cortisol, which cortisol is your survival hormone. It is your fight or flight, right? Run from a bear hormone. It's produced in the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are these little tiny glands that sit right above the kidneys in the lower back. And up until the age of about 35 in perimenopause, those adrenal glands are only responsible for one thing, which is keep you alive. So from the time you're born until you get to the mid 30s to early 40s, its only responsibility is survival. Okay. That's why your capacity and your tolerance for high intensity exercise tends to be greater before the age of 35 to 40, because those adrenal glands, that's their only job. We can handle it. She's going to do some jump tucks. We got it. She's going to do a HIIT workout. We're cool. Like, we know how to keep her safe. What happens though, is we just talked about perimenopause. As that progesterone starts to decline, I like to use the analogy of a cruise ship. A cruise ship leaving the dock. If you've ever been on a cruise, you know how long it takes for a cruise ship to like slowly depart from the dock. That's perimenopause, right? Like, your ovaries are literally just saying, we're peacing out of here. Like, we're off to the Bahamas. It's been real. It's been great. We're no longer interested in becoming fertile. So we're just letting you know that we're done, right? In about 8 to 10 years, we're going to be done here. So as that starts to happen, I have a question for you. Because most women will actually get this question wrong. Once you're in menopause, do you still have sex hormones? The answer is yes, you do. Even if you've had a hysterectomy, even if you're postmenopause, you still have free-flowing estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. So my next question is, if your ovaries are no longer producing that once you hit menopause, do you know what's producing those sex hormones? The answer is those little adrenal glands that sit above your kidneys. Those little adrenal glands who for 35 to 40 years have only been in charge of survival are all of a sudden being given, we've all been in that position, right? Where like your boss leaves work and all of a sudden you're in charge of your job and your boss's job. Like that's what's happening with those adrenal glands. All of a sudden they're like, crap, like we have to take on both responsibilities. We've got to build sex hormones here and take care of the cortisol. So when you understand that that fourth leg of your chair, the cortisol piece, is such a crucial piece because that cortisol represents your stress. So if the stress in your life is even just somewhat stressful, and it's already taking on the responsibility of understanding and creating sex hormones as it also keeps you alive, all of a sudden we realize why that chair can start to become a little bit wobbly. So my next question for you is, if I were to take a saw and saw off one leg of the chair, what happens to the whole chair? It's really wobbly, right? So this is the conundrum with hormones. This is why a lot of doctors are like, I think all the labs look great. I'm gonna stay out of here. This is a little complicated because you can actually see where, like, if the sex hormone leg of your chair is your problematic leg of the chair, the whole chair can wobble. You can start to have thyroid symptoms. You can start to have blood sugar symptoms. You can start to have cortisol symptoms because all of a sudden now this chair is wobbly and it gets a little complicated. So what we need to do is figure out which leg of your chair is the problem. And that is root cause medicine when it comes to your hormone health. I love this quote from Dr. Sarah Gottfried, who's one of my favorites in this space. She says, we need to change the conversations that women have in the doctor's office and on social media about what they eat, how they work out, and how they feel about their health and bodies. I just had to throw that in there. So another analogy for you, because this is how I like to teach. By the way, when you're going through hormone health courses, this is not usually how it's taught. Usually it's very sciencey and hard to understand. So when I was going through a lot of the courses that I've taken, including Stacey Sims courses, I was the one constantly raising my hand saying, can someone explain like what this means exactly? Because this is confusing. So I like to teach in pictures and analogies to help you understand and apply it to you. So a root cause approach is looking for the matches in the basement that's near the newspaper so that we can keep the house from setting on fire, right? The house being your body. Traditional medicine, unfortunately, a lot of times is everything is normal until it's not and your house is on fire. So a perfect example of this is the thyroid. Okay, and I mean, I could give multiple examples, but I'll just use this example tonight. With the thyroid, right, we're really looking for an optimal number there. But if you were to look at normal lab ranges, and it depends on the type of labs being done and the is it Quest, is it whatever company's doing it and their metrics. But regardless, what we're looking at is we're looking for, in a functional lens, an optimal number for that TSH. And ideally, we would also be looking at other factors of the thyroid, antibodies, T3, T4. There's other components of thyroid that are traditionally not checked on a metabolic panel. Those are traditionally not checked by most doctors. You typically have to bargain for that to be tested. So what happens is a TSH panel typically will come back, and the range that's given for normal is anywhere from 0.4 to 5.5, right? So as long as your traditional medicine doctor sees that your TSH is in that normal range, everything is normal, right? A functional doctor or functional practitioner is going to look at that and say, really, we want to be between 1 and 2. That's optimal. It's a huge difference. That is matches in the basement. We need to pay attention to this, whether you have an over or underactive thyroid, as opposed to, okay, house is on fire. Now we need to look at thyroid removal or Synthroid or medications, right? Does that make sense? Same thing goes for checking sex hormones. I always tell people, if your doctor is not asking you when in your cycle you are for that test, wrong doctor, because it matters when you're testing in your menstrual cycle. So there's a lot of nuances when it comes to this kind of stuff that you guys need to have this knowledge, right? I wish it was as easy as, hey, like go look for this credential. You just need a functional medicine doctor. But I can tell you from my experience, the people that I know, even in the functional space, it really comes down to not a credential, but more so just their understanding of hormones. It's really unique. So we've already talked about most exercise and nutrition research has been done on men until now. And here's what we know about women. We know that women follow two different rhythms. We follow a circadian rhythm, just like men do, but we have an extra superpower in that we are also infradian, meaning that we follow the cycles of the moon. So hang with me, nobody hang up yet. I promise I haven't gone off my rocker. I'm not a witch doctor, but this is important to understand because, okay, let's talk about men, right? Constant steady state of hormones all the time. That's why they don't have fluctuations. There's no, right? There's no PMS for men. But men are waking in the morning. Their cortisol is highest in the morning, just like ours. And then as the day goes on, they get sleepier and sleepier as melatonin takes over for a rise at night. And they are circadian. They're on a 24-hour clock, 24/7, which ironically is how society works, right? Your boss doesn't care if you're on your period or ovulating. You work 9 to 5, right? Society works on a circadian clock. But women, like I said, have an extra superpower in that we are infradian, meaning that we have different ebbs and flows to our energy, hormonal energy. So a lot of women don't realize this. 70% of women will actually ovulate around a full moon, where the remaining 30% of women will actually ovulate around a new moon. We actually do have tie-ins to the moon. We are lunar beings. I have a podcast episode on that as well. But we know that we have different hormone phases of our cycle. We have high hormone phases, we have low hormone phases that affects our energy and how we feel. And when we can understand those menstrual cycles that are unique to us, right? I might have a 28-day cycle while Jen might have a 40-day cycle. When we understand what our unique differences are and what our menstrual cycle should look like, we can start to pick up on issues that might be happening, right? Like for me, no one ever talked to me about progesterone, right? I didn't know that it was a big player in my migraines until I finally learned it. But then once I started learning about progesterone, I started learning about the superpowers of progesterone and how my body wasn't producing it. All of a sudden, I was like, this makes so much sense. This makes so much sense as to why I have painful periods. This makes so much sense as to why I feel depressed the week leading into my period. This is why I feel anxious. Like everything started to make sense, right? That's my unique story. But when you can see this is the menstrual cycle and how I should be feeling during the different phases, as opposed to how I really am feeling, it once again makes you more equipped and confident to step into that doctor's office and say, look, I'm supposed to be feeling this way, but I feel this way. And you're all of a sudden, you are what I like to call hormone literate. You're hormone literate. And when you're hormone literate and you're working with a hormone literate functional practitioner, you can get to the root cause of what's going on for you. So at the end of the day, what I want you to take away is there's a lot of things here, but if you are someone who's either been told, or maybe you're just telling yourself that I just need to work harder and eat less, nothing could be further from the truth, right? And I don't have enough time tonight, unfortunately, to go really deep into this. But if you think about those little adrenal glands, like we've talked about already, if you think about their responsibility as you age, right, and how they're taking on more and more work, you can understand how restricting food and working harder creates more stress on the body, which becomes counterproductive to your weight loss goals. It's not all about weight loss. It's about the energy, right? But it's also going to be counterproductive to your energy as well. So when we start to look at what does work for women, and I've got plenty of women on here tonight, we've got a couple that are going to share their stories. What you'll find is that when we can embrace what I call reverse diet culture, when we can say, you know what, maybe I do need enough food as fuel. Maybe I do need to pay attention to what my body is uniquely doing and do root cause testing on what's going on for me. When we start to pay attention to those things and we start to work out in alignment with those highs and lows, when we embrace the fact that I can really push during this phase of my cycle and I can do a strength or a HIIT workout, but in this phase of my cycle, it's better for me to rest or walk or do the yoga. When we can start to really dial that in, then we start to live in alignment with our physiology instead of working against it. And when we can do that, when we can work in alignment with our physiology, we can reach maximum energy, which is where this whole thing started. It's about finding that maximum energy. So again, health is individual. I hope that I'm going to circle back here at the end after these other ladies speak, but I just hope that at the end of the day, you guys know that everyone is individual. What you're up against is not what your friend is up against. And if you're currently feeling stuck, or even like I said, if your doctor has been in the position of telling you it's time to back off it's time to back this off or do more HIIT workouts, or it's time to cut back carbs or whatever, all the things that I've heard people say, the low fat diets or the intermittent fasting, all those different things. I would say this: pay attention to the research that's done on the woman most like you. If you are a woman who works out and trains, guess what? Fasted workouts are working against your physiology. Fed workouts will change the game for you. If you are a woman who is more sedentary, right? We need to take a look at your metabolic health to see whether or not your body is metabolically flexible to handle something like intermittent fasting. Just because Instagram says it's popular doesn't mean it's right for you. So health is individual. We've got to dig into our root causes. And essentially, at the end of the day, we're seeking that maximum energy. So I don't want to be the only one to talk here. And I know I'm going to stop my share. I know I also need to make these ladies able to share if they want to too. So hang on one second. I don't know if you guys have slides or if you're just going to chat, but Erin, do you want to go first? Perfect. So Erin Trier, she came into the sync course. I guess it was not even a year ago.
Yeah, like May.
Less than a year ago.
Yeah, May.
And also became a sync certified coach. She's got other credentials as well in the health coaching space, but she's actually the one that said, can I please share my story? Can I please share my story? Because I want to tell women how awesome this is. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Erin, if you want to just tell us more about your experience and what you found for yourself through your own health journey.
Can you hear me?
Say something for me, because right now I can't hear her. Can you guys hear her?
Can you hear me
now?
now?
I can't hear her. That's weird.
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me now?
Hang on
Yes.
1 second.
I can hear you.
It sounds like most can hear me, Jenny. Hold on.
Well, if they can hear you.
Can you hear me now, Jenny?
Just start talking and I'll figure it out on my end.
That's so weird. Okay, everyone else can hear me. Okay. Jenny, thanks so much for letting me kind of share my story. I am really excited to kind of give you guys a little bit of a snapshot into just my personal journey and how I got exposed to Sync, how I met Jenny, and just really how this community and getting the knowledge that I have now has changed the game for me as far as just really learning how to take care of my evolving health over time. So just quickly, my name is Erin Trier. I'm a mom of 4. I've been in the health and wellness space for about 7.5, 8 years. I met Jenny through our wellness business, right? We're a part of a network marketing company. We've been working with women and, helping in the health and wellness arena for a while. And when I found Jenny, like I really was at a pretty defeated place. I would say, I had my 4th baby at 37. By the time I had turned about 38 and a half, which was like right through the pandemic, I really reached this pretty low place where what Jenny described was me, right? What I was once doing was no longer working. I had really intense up and down mood swings, right? Like the week before my cycles felt really low, really depressing, right? I had really intense rage that I was trying to manage. Stress felt harder to manage. And I just was really in a place where I didn't know what I needed anymore, right? Precision nutrition, right? And so I've really started to dive into more of the knowledge because again, it's really so incredibly valuable to understand like what are all the moving pieces to our inside out wellness. And through like my education and through learning from Jenny, like I really started to see firsthand how my 4-legged chair was completely out of balance. My sex hormones were in the tank. I've done all kinds of testing that Jenny has led us to, right? I learned a lot about how my sex hormones were completely in the tank. I've learned a lot about metabolic health and how my blood sugar and my insulin were not stabilized well, right? How cortisol was a factor, right? My stress was way too high. I wasn't paying attention to recovering and resting intentionally and well enough. I was calendar conditioned to the point where I wasn't paying attention to my body. I was paying attention to like the calendar I was following or the agenda I had set out for myself, because I am very much a type A, like rule follower, have the plan, do the things. But I've had to really back off of that and understand that like listening to my body and listening to my intuition is okay. And quite honestly, it's super important, especially the older I get, right? Jenny also shared a little bit about, or asked me to share a little bit about, like, what are the things that I see with my clients right now? What are the things that I'm talking to other women about? And quite honestly, it's a lot of the same similar struggle, right? I feel stuck. I feel like I need to work out harder and eat less. I feel like no matter what I do, I can't seem to create some level of progress or change or energy in my day-to-day life. I feel like a lot of the women I speak to are really in the kind of old school mindset of just do more versus like really digging into your own intuition and saying, what is my body telling me, right? What is my mind telling me? And what do I really truly need to do from a habit standpoint to serve me, right? From the inside out. I think sometimes for us as women, that can be really challenging to do because we kind of get into this forward motion and this progress of feeling like we have to do things one specific way. But Jenny's really opened my eyes to the power of root cause medicine, getting knowledge on hormone health and really diving into, again, like your own intuition. One of the most incredibly fascinating things that Jenny has taught us is the four-legged chair concept, but also like that so much of the research around health and wellness is not done on women, right? So it's like we have to be having these conversations and saying, this is how I feel, and not being afraid to kind of question things a little bit and go in a different direction that might feel better for us on a more intuitive level. So I'm so glad you guys are here to learn this. I am so incredibly passionate about teaching other women about this knowledge so you can take it and feel empowered in your own journey. Having the information that I have and that I've learned through the Sync course has empowered me to know how to ask the questions, how to look for the right testing, how to know what's optimal versus normal, right? It's empowered me to really understand my individual body and has empowered me to know like that there are answers and there is hope. And we can feel good and still thrive, even as we evolve over time. I think that's maybe the biggest message of all. Because there was a moment in my journey that I felt just like Jenny did, right? Maybe this is just how it's going to be. Here I am. I'm almost 40. Maybe this is just how it's going to be. I'm just going to feel this way now, and that's how it is. And that's not how it is, right? That's not how it is. And I can't even explain enough how much of a blessing it has been to be a part of this community and to, again, get put on the path of diving deeper into certifications, to have the empowered knowledge to go to the right doctors and practitioners who are knowledgeable that can really, truly help me. Because for me, I'm about longevity health, right? And I'm sure so many of you are too, right? We all are. Like longevity health and being proactive in our decisions is huge for long-term health and longevity. And so I want to learn now about what are the interventions I need to be doing, or what are the proactive measures I can take now to prevent potential chronic disease, to prevent, any kind of other things that could potentially be out of my control, right? I'm trying to make sure that I'm really doing everything I can in my control to learn and to just dive into just more knowledge. So I'm so glad you guys are here. That's just kind of a glimpse of my story.
Yeah, so good. So good. And I love it too, because I've gotten to know Erin. And it's been great to kind of see her journey and see things evolve over time. And that's the thing, is I feel like so often we're thrown this idea that there's like some sort of before and after, like you're just going to find the thing, like you're going to find the workout program or the diet or whatever that's going to work. And what you do is you end up realizing this is a journey, and it's just when you think you got it figured out, perimenopause. So we're going to hear a little bit more from Jen Giamo too. And she's had the great fortune of not just doing the course, but also the consults that I offer alongside an osteopathically trained physician, which we'll talk about. And one of the things that Dr. Page, my partner in crime, says often is, anytime you don't have an explanation, you just say #perimenopause. She's like, you lose your car keys, #perimenopause. I don't know. So that's like the new thing. But it's so true, right? Like I just saw another reel today on Instagram that was like, this is what happens with men over time. Their testosterone just sort of has this slow, gradual decline. But with women, if you were to look at our female hormones on a monthly basis or on a lifetime span chart, you would see what looks like 4 different roller coasters superimposed on each other. But yet we're supposed to maintain our skin health and maintain our beauty and maintain our everything, right? I saw a reel about this, like I said, and the doctor that did the reel said, I want you to comment below with your favorite caption for this. for this difference between menopause and menopause. And some of my favorite comments were things like, well, a woman would write a movie about it and film a movie about it, and the male lead would win the Oscar. And it was just like the comments were so great, but it's so true, right? Like we'd be pulling up, getting bioidentical hormone replacement therapy like it was a gas station, right? Like different things that are just unfortunate, but so true. So thank you, Erin, so much for sharing your story and your journey, because it's, like I said, it's a journey for all of us. So, okay, Jen Giamo, you're here somewhere.
Hi, I'm here. I don't know what
You're
square I'm in
here.
for you, but I'm here. Can you hear
You're
me?
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go for it, sister. Tell
Okay.
us your story
All right.
and yeah, take it away.
Okay, so I'm Jen, and similar to Erin, although I'm considerably older than her. Um, so I have been in the health and wellness industry, a personal trainer and nutritionist for 25 years, I want to say. And yet I was in denial that I was in perimenopause, but clearly I am, just given my age. So this was at first for me was a personal interest and kind of like Erin, experiencing some of these symptoms, weight gain, the bloating that I had in my stomach was so incredibly uncomfortable, and headaches and mood swings. And I'm like, what is going on? I don't know what this is. And I saw Jenny had posted a comment in a Facebook group or something about hormone health. And I was like, I think I need to know more about this, because these sound like all the symptoms that I've been having. So, yeah, I mean, again, as a trainer, nutritionist, and doing this kind of work for so many years, and then learning this information, I was like, oh my God, what the hell have I been doing? I'm almost embarrassed to go to my clients and say like, oh, guess what? You shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that. And, but it has helped me in working with my clients to be able to tell them now, especially, as they are aging, as I am aging. And so we're going through some similar things, and just understanding what that means. And, after hearing Jenny's story, which obviously was much more severe than what I was going through, but, it just made sense that I need to know more about hormones. And so I, took the course, finished the course. I think it was last April. I don't remember now. And for me, one of the biggest pieces was learning what types of tests to get done, because like Jenny mentioned earlier, you go and get a blood test and that's just a snapshot in time, and it's not really telling you much about your hormones. So I went ahead and did the Dutch test, which took about a month. And you do it, it's a urine testing, and you do it throughout your cycle. And yes, I'm still having a cycle at 52 years old. 53, actually. I just had a birthday. So that to me was so telling. But then I got these results and I'm like, well, I don't really know what this means. So that's when I decided to do the one-on-one consults with Jenny and Dr. Page, so that I can understand what those results meant and then figure out where do I go from there. And those consults, you guys, are so thorough and so helpful in navigating this whole journey for me. And I now am taking bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which I can't believe that I didn't do this 10 years ago. I guess it was November, Dr. Page prescribed it for me, and it's just the estrogen patch and a progesterone pill. And my symptoms within, I would say, I mean, definitely within a month, my headaches were gone. I had no more headaches. And then probably 2 months in, the bloating was gone. I lost weight. Like everything was changing. And I was also following, Jenny's protocol with cycle syncing and matching my exercise and my nutrition, to my physiology and what was going on at different times in my cycle. But I mean, I feel amazing now. And it just, it goes to show you that you don't, especially for me, like you don't know everything, and you don't, just because what you were doing before was working, you can't do the same thing as you get older. And so that was a big eye opener for me. And like I said, my only regret is not knowing about this sooner. And then just to add one more thing, I kind of mentioned with clients, this has really given me another sort of facet to my business. So having this knowledge and integrating it into my business now with private clients has really, really been a game changer. It's allowed me to offer them something new, you know, just showing them that you can get results, in perimenopause or as you're aging. You can still get results. We just have to shift some things. So that's been really cool as well. Is there anything else, Jenny, you want me to?
Oh, no, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned. So we'll talk about the consult piece because I know there'll be questions about that too, but I love that. And being able to work with you in that private setting, not just through the course, but both of these ladies have also gotten sync certified, which is an option too. If you're a health coach, or if you're looking to refer other people into the program, that's an option too. But being able to see both of you ladies and so many more, not just change your physique, but also to say like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, I've had people tell me this has saved my marriage. I've had people tell me, I wish I had known this 10 years ago, right? I wish I would have started this 10 years ago. I have some of these consults that we're meeting women who there's Alzheimer's in their family, and they don't realize that, we're looking at their Dutch results and their lab work, and we're seeing low estrogen, and we're making the correlation to them that estrogen decline, we do have research on estrogen decline and its correlations and connections to Alzheimer's disease, right? So being able to equip women with sometimes bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, sometimes lifestyle solutions, sometimes natural supplements or through nutrition, like there's all different components, right? We talk about those different fundamentals, but being able to help women see those things is literally the most rewarding experience I've had, right? I mean, I had 13 years as a health and fitness coach where I was constantly getting messages about, thank you for helping me lose the weight. Thank you for helping me get my confidence back. But there's just something hits me different when I get a message from a woman who says, I'm sitting in this functional medicine doctor's office with all the print offs you gave me, all the downloadables, and I've never felt more excited for an appointment because I finally feel like I know what I'm asking and I know what I'm here for and I know what the answers I want to get. And there's just something different about that. So to hear you guys share that, like, you're stepping into that maximum energy for yourself, that at 53, you feel great and you're able to then turn around and share that with your clients, is to me just amazing. So, and it's funny, right? Because when I think back to like 2020, when I created the course and before we ever launched the podcast, I was like, who's ever going to want to hear from me? Like, I remember thinking that. And now it's like, thank goodness I went with it. So, okay. So I'm going to go through, thank you so much, Jen, for sharing your story. I'm going to go through some of these questions here, and then I have a couple more slides to share. I can't believe we might actually do this in an hour or so. I really thought this would be like as long as the Titanic movie. Okay. What tests should we ask to have run? This is a common question. Yeah. Aaron looks like has already commented. It kind of depends on a couple factors. One, the symptoms that you're having, but also your budget, right? Because sometimes testing can be a bear. We do offer some, alternative measures for testing within the course. So there are sometimes, like, people don't realize that, like, it's not always about having things covered on your insurance. There are nowadays, right? There are third-party tests out there that you can order for yourself. You don't have to have a doctor order for you. And a lot of times those types of tests are cheaper than even having something covered on your insurance, or by having testing that is covered on your insurance that isn't helpful, which is also a waste. So, so there's different options there, right? I know that Dr. Page is a huge fan of looking at baseline blood work first, but realizing that it is not the whole story, right? When you have blood work done, it is a 5-second glimpse in time. Your hormones can look different at 8 a.m. than they do at 10 a.m. based on if you ate or if you hydrated, or right. So blood work is really not super accurate, but it can give us a general picture of what's going on. And if we need to go deeper with something else, we can look at saliva for different things. We can look at urine for different things. So it kind of just depends on starting with those basic labs, making sure we're getting a thorough look at it, and then deciding what's needed for you. So I wish it was a simpler answer. I do give in the course, which we'll talk about, I give a downloadable file for you to take to your practitioner that says, these are the 4 legs of the chair and every single item within those legs of the chair that can be tested, so that when you do figure out your symptoms or what's going on for you, you can ask those specific questions and for that testing. Okay, what about brain fog or memory struggles? Yes. So this is really common, especially in perimenopause into menopause. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times estrogen does play a role when it comes to this, and that slow progressive progesterone decline, right? So paying attention to getting your testing done. And this is a question I get often. Women will say to me, well, I'm already in menopause, so I guess it's too late for me to do the testing. Well, like I said, you still have free flowing hormones. You certainly still have your thyroid and your blood sugar and your cord, like the other legs of your chair are still fully intact as well. So you still need testing. The difference is if you're no longer in reproductive years, we're just looking at a new optimal. We're just looking at a new range versus what we would have been looking at when you were younger, right? So brain fog can be pretty common in perimenopause and beyond, but figuring that out for you and getting that testing and then supplementing you in the right ways can make all the difference. Do I need to be off the birth control pill to get accurate tests? The answer for that is yes. Yes. In order to get accurate tests for sex hormones, yes. You can still do, you can still look at blood sugar and cortisol and those things on the birth control pill. Okay, I'm 8 months postpartum, almost 40, definitely resonating a lot with what Erin said, only unsure if the work can really be done while not cycling yet. Postpartum feels so different. Yes. Could it be because of age and other things happening with my hormones? Wondering if you have any experience specifically with older postpartum. So this is sort of a tricky time, right? This is something that is very unique to each individual woman in the postpartum eras of her life. And it's, like I said, it's unique to you. So a lot of times, I would think if you're 8 months postpartum, there's testing that could definitely be done at this point to see what's going on with your hormones. Usually if it's within a couple of months of delivery, we say, let's kind of let things settle a little bit, but I think 8 months would be a good time to do the right type of testing. But yeah, when it comes to unsure if the work can really be done, there's still plenty that you can be doing. I mean, there are even some basic principles we kind of touched on tonight, right? Making sure you're fueling enough. We teach that in the course. We talk about proper protein intake, healthy fats, how hormones come from fat. Like there's a lot of information just about nutrition and the type of exercise that can really be conducive to you. And honestly, when women start to, without a cycle yet, if you start to do moon syncing, which I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but since you're not having a cycle, we would actually sync your workouts and everything up to the moon because, like I said, most women are cycling with the moon, whether they know it or not. A lot of women, I've had women do this and then their cycle comes back and they're like, oh my gosh, I started on the new moon, or I started close to the new moon because I was moon syncing and I was living in alignment with that energy. And it's almost like you're working with your physiology, right? So yeah, and it looks like we can have a private conversation as well about that. Okay, and then before I wrap up, last question, what about testing while on an antidepressant anxiety med? So you wouldn't be testing neurotransmitters. That's always an option down the road, but for these basic 4 legs of the chair, totally still doable to test those. Okay, I'm gonna go back to share my screen because you know me, like I've already gotten off track because I wasn't doing that. So hang on one second. Okay. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing that. So I wanted to make sure I gave you guys some resources tonight because this is always a question. So the first thing I'll say to you, these are some free resources. The podcast is called Sync Your Life on all platforms. We have 216 episodes out. I cover lots and lots of information on the podcast, and I have interviews with over 60 functional medicine experts on the podcast. There's also a hormone imbalance quiz. It's basically the purpose of this quiz is not to diagnose, but instead to give you an idea of which leg of your chair could be the weakest so that you can then turn around and say, okay, this is something I need to dive into. If you're interested in the Sync course, right? I mean, like I said, if I could have spent 12 hours with you tonight, I would have taught you so much more. I tried to bottle up everything you need to get started in this 1 hour. But if you want to go deeper into this, I mean, like you just heard from these ladies, this course is what I wish I had had in my 20s. In fact, all the courses I've created are just that. I have a course on the gut microbiome and a course on fertility, understanding a functional fertility approach. The reason I create these is because I wish I had had it myself. So I'm really just trying to turn around and help the woman behind me who's struggling and feels stuck, whether it's with migraines, infertility, hormone imbalance, can't lose the weight, don't feel the right energy, like perimenopause, all the things. So the Sync course originally was designed to be all about cycle syncing. When I first created the course in 2020, it was how can I take my fitness-minded brain, my personal trainer brain, and everything I've learned about women's training and make this all about exercise, right? So that's how it originally started. And then we just decided that wasn't enough because you cannot exercise your way to hormone balance. So even though you'll see cycle syncing trending on Instagram, you're going to start to see it pop up here and there. If you don't know when you're ovulating, if you're not tracking your cycle in the right way, and if you don't know what your root cause imbalances are, because remember, 72% of women are dealing with an imbalance, then cycle syncing is just like not going to work, right? It's just a fad that's not going to work if you're not addressing the root causes. So instead, we built out a really robust system. It's 6 modules, lots of videos from me teaching very similar to how tonight was. We start with finding a functional approach, right? What does it look like to find a practitioner? If you want somebody local to you, I teach you how to go about interviewing and finding the right doctor so you don't waste your money on the wrong one. Just because someone has a functional tagline doesn't mean that they're a functional minded person with hormone knowledge. We also offer the consults, which I'll talk about too. From there, we move into proper testing, making sure that not only you understand what's being tested, but also what optimal ranges are versus normal ranges. We give you the downloadables. And then from there, we go into mastering the fundamentals of hormone balance, which is sleep, supplementation, fitness, and nutrition. That's where you're going to get the deeper dives on syncing to your cycle with your workouts. You're going to get 12 weeks of meal plans catered to the different phases of your cycle. So for example, you'll get a meal plan for ovulation week. You'll get a meal plan for PMS week so that you're eating the right foods at the right times of your cycle. You'll get a supplement guide with all my favorite supplements so that when you do get your tests back, you can say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And these are the supplements she recommends. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn around and ask my doctor for these. I've had so many women tell me that because of that information, their doctor is like, what is this? Like, where are you learning this from? This is amazing. No one's ever had these questions from me before. So that's the idea, is to equip you with everything you need to know to be able to ask the right questions. So we're doing this webinar for the first time. We've never done this before. Never done a webinar. We've done groups before. We've done other things, but we decided we wanted to do this at the start of the year because we really want to offer you guys the opportunity to get in at a discounted rate. So we're offering a very short-term 24-hour deal for anybody that listens to the webinar. Normally $259 for the full course. We're offering it for $209. So if this is of interest to you, this will expire at this time tomorrow night. Your coach, your Sync certified coach, can get you the link to enroll. But I know that there's probably going to also be questions about the consults too, since we mentioned that. I didn't make a slide for it. But in the last 6 months, I started a partnership with Dr. Paige Gutile. Like I said, she's an osteopathically trained family physician with a focus in women's hormone health, very knowledgeable about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. The reason I created that partnership is because I had brought so many women through the course, and the only thing that was holding people back was the right doctor, right? The only thing holding people back was, oh my gosh, I've met with 3 people locally, but I don't think any of them understand. And I didn't want women to continue to like waste their money and time on the wrong doctor. And so she and I had connected through the podcast. I actually had her on the podcast and we could like finish each other's sentences because we were on the same page, pun intended. And so I asked her to partner with me for these consults. And so we do everything virtually. It is an additional cost to the course. We offer a total of 2 consults. We're finding it's about 3 hours of our time with you. So the first consult is usually closer to 1.5 hours to 2 hours. We sit down, we go through a very detailed intake form. We're going to look at lifestyle for you. We're going to ask you questions about your sleep, about what supplements you're currently taking, about your energy levels. We're going to talk to you about your exercise and nutrition. We're going to do a deep dive on all those fundamentals. And then Dr. Paige is fully equipped to also offer supplementation protocols, in some cases pharmaceuticals, in some cases bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. We give you a protocol to follow, and then we set a follow-up appointment for 2 to 3 months later so that we can then go back and we can meet with you again to see how things are going. So that is an additional, if you're wondering, like, how do I do the whole thing? How do I do everything? Tonight, right? This is a code for you I'll give you the code for the 209 offer for the course. If you want to do the consults, that's a separate piece, $625 for the 2 consults. Like I said, 2 to 3 hours combined, plus a very detailed intake form and protocol. And here's the cool thing about Dr. Paige. She gives all, if you're in a position where you're wanting testing, right? If you're like, I don't know who to ask, like, I don't know if my doctor will run this test. I don't know what the Dutch test is, whatever. She's actually giving you her prices on any testing that's needed. So the reason why that's relevant is because if you were to say, I'm just going to do this on my own, or I'm going to ask my doctor's going to order, for example, a Dutch test. A Dutch test is anywhere from $600 to $1,000 to do a 1-month Dutch test, right? Most accurate thing you're ever going to see though. And it's very, very in-depth. Dr. Page can actually get it to you for $300. So because she's giving you her practitioner code. So in that case, we do not make anything off of any of the testing. We order it for you from our own personal discounts. And that's what you get is the price of the test. So a lot of women are able to say, I want to start with just the basic lab work. Let's start there. And we're able to do that for well under $200, which is really good too. So if you were looking to start a functional journey, on your own, finding a local doctor, etc., I can assure you that by the time you go through the multiple appointments, multiple protocols and testing, you're looking at several $1,000s. So we try to make it really affordable for you by teaching you what you need to know so that you have the right questions to ask, giving you the testing at a discounted rate, and then giving you 3 hours of our time. We're very in and out in those 2 sessions. We're going to get you everything you need to know. We're going to follow up with you and move about our day. Because in the end, shouldn't that be what health is? Shouldn't health be, let's get you on your way, right? Let's get you to maximum energy. You shouldn't need to continue coming back to us. If you decide to, great. But if not, that's not the goal. So different approach to health. All right. So I'm going to stop my share because I can't see the chat when I'm on the share. Okay. Let's see. Unlearning that's most powerful. Yes. Yes. I want all this information so I can help my daughters someday. Amen to that. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old daughter. And that's exactly why I do what I do. When I started the podcast in 2021, I told my husband, if no one ever listens to this except my 2 girls, our 2 girls in 15 years, then all the time I put into it will be worth it, because this is the information that women need to know and hear. There's a reason why, I just heard this last week, that there's a reason why hormone health is trending on Instagram. It was the #1 trending topic on Instagram last year. It's because women are sick of being gaslit in doctors' offices. Women are sick and tired of being told they're normal. Women are sick and tired of dealing with perimenopause in a circadian world. And we're finally saying like, hey, I don't feel right. And can someone please help, right? And functional medicine is the future. I need to find a statistic on that, because I know functional medicine is most definitely on the rise. Okay, how do you cycle sync when you no longer have a cycle? Yeah, we sync you to the moon. Yeah, because women follow a lunar cycle, right? So this happens sometimes. Women have had hysterectomies or partial hysterectomies, or they're on birth control, or like I said, post-menopause. We sync you to the moon. And I know it sounds crazy, but again, I've had many women say to me that it really aligns with their energy. So just a quick overview. As the moon is waxing and growing in strength and light, our energy is increasing. And as the moon is waning into a new moon, guess what? We are introverting and our energy is waning. So we follow the energy of the moon. We sync you to that, even with the workouts and stuff as well. The course. Yeah. Oh, I need to give you the code, right? That's the whole thing. And your Sync certified coach will give you the code as well. It is all caps. I'm going to type it in the chat. Webinar 24. That's the code. It will last until 9:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night. This recording will go out late tonight. Yeah, it looks like Erin's got me covered with the podcast. Perfect. So webinar 24 for the discount. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out to your Sync certified coach. I'm also available as well if you have any questions for me, but thank you so much for tuning into this. I can't believe we did it in just over an hour. That's incredible. The energize that I had before this might have helped that. But let's just say thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that you took something away from this. I hope you'll take a root cause medicine approach to your health, regardless of anything else. And I hope that you know that normal is not optimal and that you deserve to live with maximum energy. All right, my friends, have a good night. And I hope to see you in the course very soon. Bye-bye.